Hello, and welcome to Monumental, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, leaders, visionaries, and big thinkers making monumental change. Here's your host, Evan Holliday.
Community builder, entrepreneur, juggler, the list goes on.
I was speaking to ULI Nashville yesterday, and I said I've never lived in a city until I moved to Nashville. And I did not come to Nashville with real estate experience. I was a juggler, and I was a marine zoologist working with killer whales. When people ask me how I got here, sometimes I tell them that my boat caught on fire because I was working with the orca up in British Columbia and found a super pod of whales. It was really, truly exciting. I was coasting along with them, and I looked back and my boat had caught on fire. And it turned out to be a harrowing adventure, but I landed on an island and I walked into a camp and found a guy with long hair and a long beard. And to make a long story short, it turns out he was from Tennessee, and I came for a visit in the 80s, and I've never left. But I got my start in real estate because I was working in Hillsborough Village, which is a little neighborhood commercial village near Vanderbilt. And I was helping with the merchants. I was working with the Neighborhood Merchants Association and working with the beautification in the neighborhood and looking to help revive the commercial district. But I got a real estate license, and when people asked me what I do, I said, I sell real estate within a 1 mile radius of Hillsborough Village. And they said, is that all that you do?
Is that it?
I said, well, yes, but I know the condition of every house in the neighborhood. I know that Vanderbilt's trying to get their employees to move back. I know that we're next to Music Row and the creatives are liking this neighborhood. And a lot of people are looking to get back to the city. And so if you know anybody who wants to buy a house in Hillsborough Village, you let me know.
And something I found in your book that I thought was very valuable is what you stressed over and over again, whether it's through your finding your own identity or finding your company's identity or finding your community's identity, is that unique selling proposition. So that was your 1 mile radius around Hillsborough Village.
Correct. And then coincidentally, I was a juggler, and I was juggling and doing juggling gigs to make my living when I first moved here. So I do gigs for the music industry, I do corporate gigs, I did some TV advertising, and I would juggle at my open houses. I wore the suspenders and the Converse sneakers, even to the GNAR events, the real estate events.
Right.
And sort of made a name as a juggler. So I was the juggling realtor, and it was strange and catchy, but it worked in scene advertising, the Nashville scene. It worked in identifying me from the rest of the pack. So I sort of had two different angles that I was working at the time.
Yeah, and I think I remember a line where you specifically referenced, it gave you more dynamic in any relationship, whether it be in real estate or outside of real estate. You weren't just known as the real estate guy. You were known as, a real person, and they could see you as a person instead of just a realtor. Yes,
and the Nashville scene, when it started, I was one of the first advertisers, and I'd use that dynamic to separate myself from the pack again, and it led to being voted the best realtor in Nashville for like 9 consecutive years.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
It was just nobody else was doing it. I feel like if I had moved to San Francisco or Los Angeles or New York City, I would have gotten lost in the pack. But Nashville was at a particular place in its history where we had a downtown that had no housing. We had neighborhoods ringing Nashville that had seen their better days, and it really needed a neighborhood champion, and I could come in and fill that role.
So what would be your advice to somebody that is getting started out in their career, maybe not exactly knowing the direction they want to go in, or trying to figure out how to differentiate themselves?
I still think that an agent should figure out its unique selling proposition. Everybody comes to whatever they're doing with their own identity, and you can bring whoever you are to your business, and you're going to be better served.
I think the overarching theme of your book, 1 Mile Radius, and as well your unique selling proposition is that 1 mile radius, that building community right around a walkable center, creating different mixes, making it someplace that people can be proud of?
Yeah, for me, 1 mile radius is geographic. It really does. I can think about working in Hillsborough Village, where I got my start. I also moved over to 12th Avenue South in the late 80s, and that street was nearly 50% vacant.
It's hard
Most
to believe
of the
now.
business, I know, it's a beautiful street, but it really was 50% vacant with lots of underutilized commercial buildings. And I had gotten permission from my former company to do some commercial sales, which was wonderful. And so I did a count of all the buildings on the street. There were 54 of them at the time, and started to identify who owned them. And then through the years, we created a strategy, which was sort of another 1 mile radius strategy, to try to find users for all those buildings. Because I was learning that walkability is key to a successful neighborhood. And if you could create neighborhood commercial districts and arts and the beginnings of our coffee shop craze here in Nashville, then people would be able to find community and they'd be attracted to those neighborhoods. And so over time, we were able to successfully rebrand the neighborhood. We called it 12 South Neighborhood Commercial District, and create what is a very viable community today.
And I think what you were talking about with 12 South brings up a good point. Like you said, you looked at all the commercial property owners, you developed a strategy to go, for the future of 12 South. You rebranded it. You're not just doing one thing at a time. You're stepping back and saying, okay, well, if we really want this to be successful, we need to plan for success.
Yes, and success means partnerships. We worked with a lot of different constituencies to make that happen. All these various smaller neighborhood groups that were close to 12 South to find out what it was that they wanted. And the MDHA helped us work with the merchants that existed, and they asked, well, what is it that you want in a neighborhood? And they said, well, first of all, we want people to slow down and stop and shop.
Right.
Secondly, we need sidewalks. The sidewalks are terrible. The street lighting is terrible. We need really new paved street. They told us what they wanted, and they were also looking for safety. There was things that they were looking to do to make the neighborhood feel more safe, to get more eyes in the street. And so what we did is I actually started a company with a friend of mine, Joel Solomon, the guy with the beard and the long hair that I talked about, called 1221 Partners. And we ended up strategically buying 11 buildings on the street. And what we were trying to do wasn't to keep those buildings. We were trying to secure them and then look for merchants who wanted to come in and do something on the street. And so we sold one building to Whitney Foray of the Creative Fitness Center for $1. I bought it for $80,000. I sold it for $80,000. And she moved in and created a business. But that's
Right.
what we wanted. We wanted people to come in and take ownership and to be stewards of the street. And gradually, we ended up selling most of those buildings to people who became merchants. But gradually, the MDHA and Public Works, and finally Mayor Purcell, when he was elected, came in and helped pave the whole street and finish the sidewalks and the streetscape, and it sort of set the stage for what it is today.
You jumped right into saying how important partnerships are. And I think I picked up on that from your book and from you going through so many learning experiences, and also you backpacked cross country, you hitchhiked, and so through all those different experiences, you were able to make connections and make friends, and you grew your network in such a way that even in Nashville, you're here, and through your development work, through your real estate work, and even outside of that, you're involved in so many different groups. Just so many ways that you're able to connect with people.
That's interesting. When I finished high school, I decided to forego college, and I hitchhiked across the country and ended up hitchhiking across the world, logging 20,000 miles. And I realized that you could define yourself however you want with each individual ride. Like, you'd end up with a conversation, and you could take it one way or the other, and you could define yourself by whatever parameters you decided. We're all a collection of many different experiences and many different maybe personalities, and you could take a
Right.
different direction. Well, I sort of feel like that helped me come in and define myself here in Nashville when I came on my own, settled down, and I could come in with all the different aspects of myself and then apply it to community and relationships and community building. And that's sort of what is now is an outcome of what started then.
Yeah, and laying that groundwork over a long time.
Yep. A lot of a little is a lot.
A lot of a little is a lot. I like it. That's like the silly expression, how do you eat an elephant?
Right.
One bite a day or one bite at a time.
Yeah, it's sort of, I know we'll talk a little bit about Village, but the Village Fund, which owns 5% of our company, started when we started in 1996. And the thought was if it owns a piece of the company, then we're able to start making contributions to the community immediately. As long as we have profits or distributions, then we can start making donations. And well, at first we made $100, so we were able to give $5. And then we made $1,000 and we gave $50. But the thought was as long as we can share what we do with community along the way, it's going to be a successful relationship. And so in that respect, a lot of a little is a lot as well.
Exactly, and in seeing that you put 5% ownership in the Village Fund, when you first started Village Real Estate Services, I just thought that was very unique. I'd never seen a founder put 5% ownership, not 5% of profit or 5% of cash flow or 5% of, you said, I'm giving you ownership and I'm going to keep it outside of the company. You're going to get the 5%. I just thought that was very powerful, and it shows, and it's an action that shows where your motives are and what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, I thought that was a good tool as well. I had been working with a group called the Social Venture Network, and it was a group of business owners committed to a just and sustainable economy. And it was the likes of Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry, Gary Hirschberg of Stonyfield Yogurt, Anita Roddick of The Body Shop, and others who are all using business as a tool. And I was getting successful in real estate sales, but I was also wondering, what am I going to do? How can I make some change in the world using a business? And I was thinking about just creating something else in business, but I felt like, well, real estate needs some help as well. And there isn't a real estate entity that's doing what I think could happen in the real estate business, so why not start my own company?
Yeah.
And that's why I started Village. That's why I decided to put 5% into the Village Fund. And I started Village in 1996, and that was during the dot-com era. And I was watching all these companies out in Silicon Valley going from 0 to $1 billion in no time flat. And that's where it came from. It felt like, well, if Yahoo had put 5% of the company into the Yahoo Fund, and it grew to $1 billion in 2 years, great. If they ended up selling that company and making distributions, that would be a good value for their community. And relatively, we're still a little company, but the Village Fund, we finally got to $1 million that we had given back to the community in 2014, and we celebrated with our Million Points of Light party. And then here in 2018, we've now hit $2 million. So there's been an acceleration because it's not just the distributions anymore. We've become a group of change agents. So we have a lot of our agents who give per transaction to the fund. And it might be $25, it might be $50, it might be $100, depending upon what the agent wants to do with their money at closing.
Right.
But again, a lot of a little is a lot. And so all of these agents contributing in a lot of closings, and sometimes their vendors and sometimes their customers, creates a more robust fund for the community. And maybe we're just getting started.
Exactly. I think it's like the hockey stick of any successful company. If you really compound on that success and compound and compound and compound, eventually you're going to hit a tipping point where your growth and your giving, in this case, and your impact. Because I think, and that's why I think you're the perfect guest for Monumental, because you are the epitome of the people we want to talk to. You are making monumental change in the world, and being able to make an impact. And I think that's really powerful in, like, exactly what you said. You said, I couldn't find a real estate company that was doing it the way I thought business should be, an agent for change. Well, I want to jump into our monumental questions. And so these are
questions.
monumental questions.
Uh-oh.
These are just short questions. So first one is, what does success mean to you?
Work-life integration. I think having a cause beyond yourself and making sure that you're doing something for the bigger community.
Do you have a morning ritual or a daily habit that contributes to a good day?
Yep. Every day I walk 5 miles. I mean, for 5 years, it's one of my goals is to walk 1,800 miles a year, and so I just do it every day. In fact, I have something called Duck Out with Deutschmann, where one of my agents can book a time with me to take a walk and talk, or one of my staff, and it's a great way for me to connect with people, and it's just a unique thing that comes along with walking.
That's pretty awesome. I've read other books of leaders that have done similar things where they're walking and talking and walking and thinking and walking and creating creates that I don't know, that perfect combination.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, I like it because you're not sitting and having a face-to-face at lunch. You're walking side by side, and you're walking at the same pace. You're pacing each other. You're deciding which way to turn, and it's a great way to hear what people are doing, what they're needing perhaps, but also a great way to create and vision and dream.
So what is your favorite book or book you're currently reading?
I just finished a book which I really enjoyed called Solving for Happiness. It was by a guy who is with Google X, or Google, he's like an executive at Google who does these space launches, I mean, he's thinking about all these things that are maybe impossible to achieve, and so he's an engineering guy. He had a reason to write a book. His son had died, and he was trying to figure out happiness, and so he actually engineered his formula for solving for happiness, and I thought it was really fascinating.
That's amazing. Well, Mark, I really enjoyed our time today. I had a blast with you. How can people reach out to you or follow you?
MyRadius.com, I believe, is the best way to reach me if you'd like to get a copy of my book or to sign up for a Twitter feed or a blog or LinkedIn. I like to link in with people. It's a nice way to connect. So all that can probably be found through OneMileRadius.com, or you can email me at markd@villagetn.com.
Well, thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.